welcome to the Three Guys podcast. So welcome, Dave. We're glad you joined us.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys, and nothing brings me more joy than to bring back some memories of me growing up in Haverhill, and love seeing what you guys are doing, man. I really have enjoyed following the episodes and seeing what you guys are building. So hopefully in a couple of years we can look back on this and say, man, those are one of the first episodes that you guys did. So shout out to you guys, man.
Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you.
But like living in Miami, there's one thing you can always guarantee yourself of, and that's at some point throughout the year, someone from up north is going to visit Miami, right? And that's what's cool about living in Miami, right? So, you know, for 4 to 6 months out of the year, everybody wants to get the hell out of the Northeast and kind of travel somewhere. Miami's a great place. So it just seems like, you know, I have a lot of old friends, either acquaintances or indirectly know them, that come down here. And some of them have even decided to move down here. So it's interesting listening to some of the podcasts and listening to some of, you know, the acting background of obviously Joe Soba, who was on there, and kind of you guys. But I was looking back on my time doing that acting or taking some acting classes. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I imagine that you were you doing that more for like your professional career in terms of like what you're doing now and kind of developing some skill sets, which is kind of getting in front of people?
No, you know what? I was doing it. I've kind of loved the arts. I've always kind of appreciated the arts, and I've always liked to put myself into challenging positions. And I think you know this, obviously, you know, anybody who puts themselves in an acting studio in front of people and kind of act, you know, told to read a script or told to kind of, you know, just kind of, you know, go live on something. It's really a challenging, challenging experience. And so I literally indirectly, it's also prepared me for the role I'm in today, right? Because you get asked a lot of questions that you may not be prepared for and things like that. And so you have to ad lib a lot. But really my passion was really just going out there and challenging myself and seeing if I can, I don't know, just learn something more about myself. So I've done that a lot in my life.
Yeah, I can see from your long list of things that you've accomplished here. And I know these guys got some questions. So
yeah,
I met, like, she was an actress that went to that studio, and
okay.
like she's out in LA right now. And yeah, I met so many people, man, from that. I think that's one of the, other than just, you know, the acting part, you like the people awesome. That you meet, and it's just friendships for life. So yeah, it's been really good.
It's a beautiful art form. I got to tell you, it's not made for everyone, but those who have made it their craft, my hat goes off to them, because it's just it's a very challenging and kind of a very emotional career to take, because you really have to dive into the roles if you want to take it serious. So
yeah, and I wish that someone had said it a while back that, you know, I wish somebody I think messaged me and said, hey, you know, I wish they pushed us more for this in like high school.
Yeah.
You know, and they may have done that. I don't know. Like, I don't know for you, David, but I probably wouldn't have done it back then, because you're just probably too scared to jump on stage and get in front of people.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I think, I don't know about you guys, but like, you know, high school for me, I look back on it and there's so many amazing memories. I think I do a better job at appreciating that time now than when I was there. Right. And it was just so busy in the moment. And, but I look back, and maybe you guys do too. And I think I have like such a great storybook high school, like from the movies, right? Like you're like, hey, that was kind of us in high school, right? Like those 80s and 90s and all the friends and sports games and homecoming and all of those experiences. So I probably wouldn't have paid attention at the time, because I was just so bogged down in my own little circle, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So let's jump in right there.
Haverhill through and through. I think you know, I grew up right by Swayze's Field, if you guys know where that is, man. And Jafarian football, and if you guys remember back in the day, you know, that was like the first rivalries I remember between the schools, right? I played St. Joe's baseball in the St. Joe's League, and we used to play out there. And come wintertime, you know, I went to Tilton, you know, up there, and we'd sled down that hill in Swayze's Field and nearly kill ourselves every day. But I think Haverhill is a great city. Haverhill is a great city for us to grow up in. You guys, you know, for those of you who know, I was born and raised in New York City until the age of 9. And then my parents split up, and my mom was a single mom and came to Haverhill. And it was amazing, because when I was living in New York City, I was living in Manhattan, And I was completely and utterly terrified of any experience that ever involved the woods, because the only thing I've ever seen on the woods was somebody was dying. Like literally anything involving too much woods and trees, like Jason is coming after you. And so
Somebody Friday the 13th.
Yeah, man. It's
and
funny,
meanwhile, in New York City, like it's like there was at that time, it was not that
great, but like
No.
honestly, that constant noise.
Yeah.
I was able to go to sleep, but then I moved to Haverhill the summer before my 4th grade, and the crickets, just the sound of crickets just had me. I just remember that summer finding it very hard to sleep because it was so quiet. I just thought I was going to be like killed in an instant.
Now, was it before, like when Jason Takes Manhattan came out? I mean,
let's touch on some of the things in high school, because you're obviously proud of those accomplishments. So talk a little bit about your experiences when you were here in Haverhill, specifically some of your athletic stuff. And were you a part of the student leadership? If you were, maybe touch on that as well.
Yeah. So, sure. Look, my mom had a pretty basic rule, and that was you weren't allowed to come home after school, right? You had to be involved in some sort of activity or something, and so I was always involved in sports. I'd go to the boys club, I'd be involved in baseball, like I said, in football and things like that. And I was a very, very, I guess, underweight and small kid, like a lot of kids our age, but I found a knack in wrestling in the 7th grade and really took a liking to it. And by the time I got to high school, I was able to wrestle varsity. And I was also involved in student government, right? So I kind of ran for class president. I was class president every year in high school. And so really had a lot of excitement around that because of all the things that we were able to do. But then, in high school, wrestling was really what I think for a young kid built a lot of confidence in me. Yes, I played football. I did track. I did baseball. By the way, I was horrible at most of it except football. I was okay at football, but track and baseball, I was a pole vaulter in track. And in baseball, I'm just going to leave it at the fact that my last year in baseball, I was on the team as a translator. So we had a really good Dominican baseball player named Carlos Rosario, and Coach Dunn, who was my wrestling coach, wanted to keep an eye on me just so I can keep training for wrestling and all the other tournaments that were going after the season. So he let me, literally got me on the team. And all I would do was literally translate for Carlos, work out, and I was on the team. But
you contributed. That's what matters.
I contributed, David. But wrestling was really where I excelled in. I came in 2nd in the state as a sophomore, then 3rd of the state as a junior, and then finally won a state title my senior year. And that's really kind of what started me thinking about, hey, hopefully I can go wrestle in college and things of that nature, right? And so, but other than that, I was very involved in a lot of things around the city. I had a funny story, but I was actually one of my first jobs ever that I actually put on a resume. I was maybe a freshman in high school. We were already talking. I took a summer course, and it was like talking about what a resume is and things like that. And I ended up working as a yard boy, cleaning the yard to a lawyer. And the agreement with me was once a week, he would let me do some filing so I can eventually put his law firm on my resume. So once a week I did some filing and I got it. And he ended up being the mayor of Haverhill, Fiorentini.
Wow.
Right. So I was, I did some filing and yard work for him when I was 13, 14 years old. And so anyway, that was,
you had some contributions all across the board between, the baseball team and the filing, you help people race to the next level.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, but I definitely have a lot more people to thank for where I'm at today than anything. And I think if I come away with a story of my youth and what Haverhill has done for me, it's literally what the importance of coaching, the importance of mentoring is to the youth. I didn't grow up with a dad, so, my dad has never seen me play a single sport. I have a good relationship with him now, but there's a lot of people who stepped in for me. I mean, whether it's baseball and football and Boy Scouts and boys clubs and things of that nature that really were great mentors and great leaders to me. And because of them, I'm in the shoes. I'm where I am today, honestly.
For the wrestling piece, David, what do you said you were small, you were skinny, right? Like when you were doing that, what do you think was like contributed to your success? I know with the wrestlers, I remember, playing hockey, like you'd always talk to the wrestlers and they'd be like, oh my God, like I have to eat, like I can't eat today, I got to hit weight, right? But there's other factors that go into that. Some, your determination, whether you're in a gym and, just constantly practicing. So what do you think kind of contributed to where you were and where you ended up in college?
Yeah. Look, I think success breeds success. So I think I was fortunate enough that when I was in 8th grade, I won the city tournament, you know what I mean? Like between all the middle schools, and it piqued my interest. Comes freshman year, Chip Dunn, talked me into going out for the wrestling team. And I was really pretty much the 3rd person on the depth chart. And I have to be honest, I wasn't necessarily the best wrestler, but I was the guy that was going to tough it out. And look, you guys all play hockey, and I have a huge appreciation for hockey. Like, look, there's a certain level of toughness that you just can't teach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's always going to be that kid that's more skilled. There's always going to be the faster kid. There's only this, but you guys know, man, on your team, there was always that grit, that grit that comes, which at a young age, you really apply it to sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you realize that what you're really learning is skills in life.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I can't speak enough about. Chip Dunn is specifically, my wrestling coach all 4 years in high school, because when I tell you that he pushed us and pushed us and pushed us beyond anything we thought we were capable of doing, that is literally, I go back 30 years now as the head of a company now, and I think of, there is nothing I do today that is harder than a practice. That is literally harder than a practice that I did in high school.
Right. Yeah.
So some of that early success was really, the coaching, the pushing, and obviously the fear in me of not giving 100%. I'm going to be very careful that I don't necessarily want to say that it's the fear of failure, because God knows I failed a ton. But it's actually the fear of waking up the next day, the next year, the next decade, and looking back and saying, man, I could have done more. And to me, that's literally what keeps driving at me.